Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. Along with Logan Landers, our producer and engineer, and our co-host and founder, Vincent Turner. Vincent, our guest today is wearing a gold jacket just about everywhere he goes. He doesn't have it for this show, but it's not all that often, Vincent, that a gold jacket appears on 100 Yards of Football. We are honored today to have Jackie Slater.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to say this. Sometimes when you're a little guy or a little boy and you're growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, and you following swag football, and I'm like in my teens. And I know about this gentleman right here because he played at one of the greatest schools in the swag, Jackson State. Can I mention Lynn Barney? Can I mention Archie Cooley? Can I mention Bob Hill? You see what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand that. Then he's from the great state of Mississippi. And I tell people all the time, the water is something right down there. And y'all need to give us respect. Elvis Presley, James Earl Jones, B.B. King, Jimmy Buffett, Tennessee Williams, the legend Walter Payton, L.C. Greenwood, Archie Manning. I don't have to go no more. And my parents, Inez and Chester Turner. And finally, when you mention all the great tackles that's played this game on any level, and I know a lot of y'all want to say Bob Brown, Ron Mix, Art Shell, Anthony Munoz, Marvin Powell, Willie Roth. You youngsters like to say, my man Jonathan Ogden and Orlando Pace. Then y'all might throw in some Leon Gray, former Jackson State great. But when you open your mouth, you better put this gentleman that's on 100 yards of football first at your list, the great legend Jackie Slater. And I'm very blessed today. Back to you, Hawk.
Well, Jackie, we got great company that you're with there from Jackson. How about that?
Unbelievable, man. And I got to tell you, Mr. Turner, I am honored once again. I mean, I should hire you to do introductions for me whenever I go and speak to people. That's fantastic. It's humbling when you mention all of those names and you think about some of the greats. These were people, many of them that I admired as a young man growing up in Jackson, Mississippi. And, they just set such a precedent for many of us young Black athletes in the state of Mississippi.
Well, Jackie, you mentioned, that Vincent should speak for you. You get a chance to speak for yourself right now. You've got a podcast with Vince Ferragamo. Talk a little bit about On Point Live and what that means for you now.
Wow, it's thank you for mentioning that, Harper. It's something. It's a lot of fun. It's what it is, and it gives Vince and I, we're two old heads now. We get to go back and talk to a lot of our teammates and friends and different people, that played sports that we were fans of, as we were playing with the Rams and growing up. For Vince here in Southern California and me in Mississippi, we try to reach out to those people and just to get them to talk about themselves and so we can relive our memory. It's a fantastic show. I really enjoy doing it, and so does Vince. And the people we get to meet and talk with, it's just amazing.
Well, I can only imagine the great stories coming from, yes, Rams of the 60s and 50s, right, when they first moved out there, but the 70s, what a great decade that was for the Rams and those great rivalries with either the Vikings or the Cowboys. Yes, they were heartbreaking in and of itself, but then things started to change in your era. Vince, you get to go to a Super Bowl, some great experiences there. And obviously with the new Rams, the Young Bucks, right, the Greenhorns, you get all kinds of different viewpoints, opinions, and great stories. And that is On Point Live. How many times a week or a month do you go on the air?
Well, we shoot the show once a week, and our producers will edit certain sections. And so it's always something coming up fresh, like every other day about that particular shooting. So the other thing I wanted to share with you before we get away from it is how much fun I'm having watching the Rams being back here in Southern California. And I got to tell you, I feel very fortunate to have been an offensive lineman for 20 years and to have set for 10 consecutive seasons and put my mind in the quandary of whether or not I would have been able to block Aaron Donald. I'm telling you right now, I'm still trying to figure out what I would have done for that guy. He was an unbelievable talent. And I just, as an offensive lineman that would have had to have dealt with him, I just hope that people really appreciated him and his work.
Well, I have to admit, we'll get on to this in a little bit, but you got to block some great guys. We'll go into that in just a second. Before we do, though, I want to make mention, On Point Live. What day is it on, Jackie? When can people
we
view
shoot it on Mondays and Tuesdays. It's on several radio stations, CRN in Los Angeles, around the country at different radio stations, and so it's rolling all week long. We try to do the radio portion, and then we try to do the YouTube portion. So
absolutely, yeah. What a great medium too. It's not the cost of a television studio. Radio seems to be dying the way of the dodo very slowly. So podcasting is really a great way for people like yourself, you and Vince Ferragamo, to get a hold of some of your buddies and even some of your enemies from back in the day that you can smile and pat on the back. I'm sure there's some 49ers that you don't want on the show, but really you do, and you want to hear their side of the story.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that, businesses are starting to realize that this is some really good exposure that we're getting here. We have an outfit back in Wisconsin called Harmony Cheese.
Yeah,
that's our top sponsor, and we're visiting with Galpin Motors. You probably Galpin Ford. You probably heard of them. We're visiting with them, and they're going to be looks like coming on board. So we have people that are really, really making us feel like our work and our the memories and everything that we're sharing are valuable, and they're coming alongside of us. That's what makes it a lot of fun.
So well. Harmony Cheese in Wisconsin, Galpin Motor Ford off the 405 freeway when I was a kid growing up in Valley, right there off 405 and I'll say Victory, Sherman Way.
Absolutely.
And then if I don't feel very good, I think Vince is going to give every one of the guests a bottle of Carissa J wine. That might make people feel a little bit better.
That's right. Vince is, he's a what do you call those people who they judge wine?
Oh yeah. Okay. So, I'm sure there's a specific name. I'm not really, but he's a connoisseur. Is that correct?
Yeah, connoisseur is another word for it. But you have to be registered and qualified to go and judge wine, and Vince is one of those. I can't think of the name of it right now, but he just drives me crazy talking about wine. And he has his own. He produces 2 or 3 different varieties. The one that I like is his one that he named after his daughters called Carissa J. And it is excellent, and really enjoy that. And those people who are into wine and talking about wine and the grapes and where it comes from and all that, it drives me nuts just to hear them talk. But they just love that stuff. And Vince, the other thing that I don't like about him is, when I eat my cheese, my Harmony cheese, I like to cut it off in hunks. I like to have some with some, some saltine crackers or some vanilla wafers or something like that, a charcuterie board. But Vince, he's a cheese shredder. Every time he eats his cheese, he's shredding it over some pasta. And I have a problem with that. So, but anyway, we get after each other about that, having a lot of fun.
There's an art and there's a science to it. But when you combine the two of them and you go, hey, wait a second, I just want to have something. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and I need a cracker.
Absolutely. We don't need to be shredding it into little pieces. Let's just eat it.
What in Wingfield High School in Jackson, Mississippi, when you were growing up, did you cut anything up? A bologna sandwich? I used to be an Oscar Mayer guy back in the day. What was?
Oscar Mayer.
Going, Jackie?
The cold cuts were always. Listen, man. When I was 13 years old, I was 6 feet tall and weighed 245, and I got bigger and bigger and bigger as the time went by, and you don't grow like that unless you're eating, pretty much everything that you can get your hands on. So I always have had a hearty appetite, and it just so happened that I was fortunate enough to have a couple of junior high school coaches when I was in the 8th grade. They tried to get me to come out in the 7th grade, but when I was in the 8th grade, I couldn't. I tried to resist the temptation of people saying, "Oh, you're just afraid you're going to get your head knocked off." I got that more than once. And so I made up my mind, I'm going to go out for football. And, at the very least, I'm going to get people off my case. And if I like it, I'll play it. If I don't like it. So I went out and I liked it and I played it well and I was learning and growing and just had a great time. And it just, next thing you know, I'm graduating high school, getting a college scholarship. I got Walter Payton and Bob Hill at my house recruiting me to come to Jackson State. And I'm just in hog heaven. And then I get there and play with Leon Gray and Donald Reese and Roscoe Word and Walter Payton. It was just a fabulous experience, before going into the pros.
Jackie, if I'm not mistaken, you started out in those early years, you're 13, 14, you were a defensive player first. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Did you end up liking that more as you got older?
I loved playing defensive tackle. I was one of the best in the city of Jackson. I made all the teams that you can make as a high school player there in Jackson. And then Walter Payton and Robert and Bob Hill came to my house to recruit me. And they said, we need you. Come on over to Jackson State. You and Walter are going to be our leaders, And so I'm thinking Walter's going to be on the offensive side of the ball. I'll be on the defensive side of the ball. And then, we'll control the team and win some games. As soon as I got there, they sent me to the meeting room with the offensive lineman. And I said, what is this? I almost left Jackson State because I didn't want any parts of what I felt like I was inflicting on offensive linemen. I didn't want that to happen to me.
Yeah.
So I was doing what you call swinging the bone, and I had a big calcium deposit on my elbow here where I was hitting people in the helmet and run by them and get the quarterback, that type of thing. And I just felt like it was a weapon, and I didn't want anybody using that against me.
No kidding.
But anyway, I had to learn it, and I had Leon Gray and Emmanuel Zanders, literally telling me, you block him, go get him, hook him. And then I went and I watched these guys, neutralize the bone and neutralize many other defensive weapons. I think this is pretty cool. You get to learn things to counter all of this stuff that people want to do to you. And once I got into that, it just became a classic fit for an athlete and a position in football.
Let me ask you this, Jackie, because there's a lot of technique. What was your asset on the defensive side? You're playing a tackle, so you're either lining up over a center or a guard. I would imagine your initial strike, because of your size, being able to find the ball, and then speed to get to the left or right, go find the ball carrier, and be able to get somebody down to the ground.
Absolutely.
What was your greatest asset?
The funny thing, you would mention that. You didn't mention really rushing the passer or beating a guy on the edge or, bull rushing and getting to the quarterback penetration. I never saw myself a pass rusher. I saw myself a run defender. Because what I really liked doing was just butting two gaps on the guy, getting down the middle on him, not on the edge, that's right down the middle on him, get my hands in his chest, stabilize him, and then get rid of the guy and go to the, two gap means you're responsible for defending the run in this gap or that gap. And so that was what I enjoyed, just making those plays. If the ball was away from me, then I would get into the inside gap and then go flat down the line of scrimmage and make the tackle there. Or those were the things that I thought were a lot of fun, playing football. Hey,
Jackie, did you have a suspension helmet back in those days in high school?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. They didn't have all the padding and everything. And I had the suspension helmet and I had the cage across my face.
Right.
My nose, you probably can tell, has been broken 6 times.
Oh my goodness.
It was just where that face mask would collapse into my face, and it would, just get these bones in my nose and break them over and over.
A lot of guys would get that cut right where the eyes come together and the nose.
Yes,
a little spot there that's basically...
I had a little spot there, but it never really. I just kept getting my nose flattened out, and the gristles, the bones in there that they refer to as, they were broken. And all they did was they took the little roll of a little cotton swab that was about 1 inch long, and in a circle, and it would put it in there to hold your nostrils open, so the blood wouldn't close it up. Is what they said.
Hey, when you got knocked out, for me, it was always how many fingers would the trainer hold up to ask
Yeah.
you how many fingers? It never was anything other than the two I'm holding up now. Did you ever have anything other than two?
No, I never had anything other than two. And, you know, I can tell you that we played the 49ers and we threw an interception. And they were returning the ball to their sideline after they intercepted the ball. And it was more like midfield when he got it. And he was running toward their sideline, and I had a beeline on him, and I was going to take a good angle because I knew he was running faster than me. And just as I hit my third step, one of the defensive linemen just, boom, hit me right in the face and flattened me right there. And you could hear the crowd go, ooh. It was like I was out in the open, and nobody was in 10 yards of me, and everybody could see it. So I get up, and I'm walking towards the 49ers sideline, and the referee grabbed me by the arm and pulled me toward my sideline. And so I'm walking toward the sideline. Everybody obviously knows I've been hit. And about 5 feet away from the sideline, the trainer grabs me by the arm, and he takes me and sits me down, and he put a smelling, one of those ammonia smelling tablets. He waved it on, he waved it under my nose, and I sat there, and it couldn't have been a minute after that pass, and we had the ball back. And they said, let's go. And I went right back on the field, and I was concussed. There was no doubt in my mind with it, because it took me, I don't know, that series and a couple of other series before I could think straight.
Yeah.
But back in those days, we used to just call it getting your bail wrong,
It got wrong. That's right. Keep your head on a swivel. Boy, when the defense gets a chance with an interception, they're going to knock somebody down. Otherwise, they're going to get teased over on their sidelines. And
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that's a walk of shame, isn't it? When you go to the wrong sideline and you have to be corrected. Yeah.
I only had that happen to me one time in 20 years. And that's why I hate the 49ers. That's why I hate the 49ers with a passion.
I imagine there are a lot of other reasons why you don't like the 49ers, but that's certainly one of them. Hey, I want to ask this. When I was a senior in high school, I was a tight end, and I had the great pleasure of something that you probably experienced many times. Tell me what it's like for you as an offensive. Now, you played defense in high school, so I'm going to talk about Jackson State. When's one of those first occasions? Said, Hut, you're engaging the defensive end, or you've got a defensive tackle or an outside linebacker, and you can feel the running back go right up one of your hips. They actually touch you. And next thing you know, they're going an extra 5, 10, 15 yards. You've got your guy. He can't make the tackle, but there's some inner satisfaction of knowing I've done my job and I'm in control of what I'm doing, versus a defensive guy that is basically at my will. Do you remember feeling that on numerous occasions when you first moved over to the offensive line?
It's funny that you would describe that like that and ask. I've never, ever, just think about what I'm about to say. I've never, ever been asked that question.
Wow.
Not one time. In all of the interviews and all of the times, I've never, ever been asked that question. What does it feel like to have a back? I can tell you that is an exhilarating surge of emotion and success and triumph to know that you just sprung a guy. It can be a first down. It can be 3 yards. They could be in short yards and goal line. It could be 3 yards, or it could be setting Eric Dickerson loose on an 83-yard run, or any number of the 7 guys that I blocked for that had over 1,000 yards rushing. It is a fantastic feeling. And, it's a hard-earned feeling to have that guy go by, because I can remember playing in a Pro Bowl, and, Barry Sanders was in the backfield and Howie Long was in front of me. And I walked up to the line of scrimmage, and I'm thinking, okay, this is a running play. And I hit Howie Long with everything I had, all my technique and everything else. And the first thing I felt was a thud in the middle of my back, where I got stuffed, and Barry ran into me from behind, and all I could do was roll over and try to get out of the way. And when I started to get up, I saw Barry bouncing down the field, maybe 20 yards. He had bounced out of that off my back and went outside and picked up 20 yards. But Howie Long on that particular play, he stuffed me like you wouldn't believe. But so to answer your question, it's a great feeling, when a back goes off of your key block or you spring a guy for, 2 yards or 50 yards.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, just knowing.
I've never been asked that question, Harper.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to do so. I thought it was great, the inner satisfaction that you get, and I would imagine because you're always trailing the play anyways. That's the time when you want to raise your hand just a little bit and let everybody know we're going to score on this drive. You're not going to stop us,
Absolutely.
What was that? Okay, and I know Vincent has 100 questions regarding Jackson State. When you get there as a freshman and they turn you over to the defense, and now you're with the offensive line, I can only imagine that. I don't know what I'm doing yet, guys. What are you talking about? Yeah, I'm big enough. I may be strong enough, but I need a quick education in terms of being able. I want to play, and I want to start right away. What was that like for you? That experience?
Well, first of all, you weren't listening to what I said. I deliberately tried to sabotage my own efforts to be successful as an offensive lineman because I didn't want to play it. And I wouldn't spend any time in the playbook, not any time whatsoever. And I told him, I don't know if you know who Emmanuel Sanders is, but Emmanuel Sanders was a free agent. He played 7 years in the NFL, and he may have been the smartest offensive lineman that I have ever met in my life. He was a short guy, maybe about 6'1". He played about 7 years in the pros. But he was the guard right next to me, and I remember going to the line of scrimmage, and he knew. I told him I didn't want to be an offensive lineman, and we would walk to the line of scrimmage, and he would say, "Hook him. You got to knock him off with pass blocking. That's it." And he did that because he knew that I didn't know what I was doing, didn't want to know, wanted to be demoted and put back on the defensive side of the ball. Right. But he was a pro. And he did what he had to do to make the right side of our offensive line be successful. And that included telling me exactly what to do because I wanted to be put back on the defensive side of the ball. And it happened somewhat, but it was out of necessity. We had some injuries, and they knew I could do it. And so at certain games where people ran the ball a lot, they put me back over on the defensive line. And I actually played in games at Jackson State my freshman year on the defensive line. I also played on the defensive line my rookie year with the Rams in isolated situation, mostly short yardage and goal line.
Did that help your enthusiasm and love for the game? Just even if it's just a couple of plays, to know that they'll still put me over there where my first passion for football is, and on the defensive tackle side of the ball?
Yeah, especially at Jackson State, because I was hopeful that they would realize that I was a better defensive lineman than the offensive lineman and put me back over there. So whenever I practiced there or any situational isolated situations where I had to go in and play, I always did my very, very best and as good as any of the starters did, with hopes of them moving me back over there. So it was, whenever that happened, both at the Rams and at Jackson State, it was exhilarating, and it made me feel that I had hope of getting back to where I felt I belonged.
I would imagine, and I know I've talked to other linemen, and I myself have experienced, it's not easy. It is so hard to stop. The faster, bigger, better athletes are always over on the defensive side. That's football 101. If they can't score on you, you're never going to lose. But for you to have to learn with your athleticism how to keep them from doing what they're trying to do, there's a challenge in that. When did you start to accept that as a part of, you know what, here's how I'm going to help this team, and I'm going to help myself in my career by learning the intricacies of this game? And from a defensive perspective, I already know what the defense guy wants to do because you're a good defensive player. Now you get to turn it around as an offense. I would imagine that helped you in insurmountable ways to be a student of the game in a different way.
Right. And you just said it. You asked me the question. And at the end of the question you just asked me, Harper, you hit the nail on the head. And this is something that I never thought myself to be. And that was a student of the game. When I found out the versatility, the imagination, the opportunity that I would have to bewilder guys then that just clicked the switch for me to say, let's go. I'm an offensive lineman.
Wow.
And I mean, I remember something as simple as I told you I had a calcium deposit on my right elbow from, we used to call it swinging the bone.
Yep.
And basically what you would do is you would, boom, hit a guy on the face mask or anywhere in the helmet, and it was legal if they didn't see you, you know, being really, you know, blatant. You could hit a guy on the helmet, and then it would stun the guy just for a minute, because it did me. And I used to call it swinging the bone. Like I said, it had calcium deposits up and down my elbow. But then when I got over there with Emmanuel Sanders and Leon Gray, they had this term called pinning the bone. So what they would do is, anybody, they said to me, and they convinced me, they said, there is no way that a person's forearm is going to stand up to a big man with a flat back, with his head arched and his face mask plowing through his forearm. And when they taught me how to pin the bone, this was one of the things took on a whole, I'm thinking, man, we can pin the bone? And I saw Emmanuel do it. I saw Leon Gray do it. And I started to pin the bones against guys that I know were swinging it. Then the sky was the limit at that point in time.
Yep.
I wanted the guys that I played in front of to not know what to expect. I wanted them to be hampered in their efforts to do what their coach told them, because I was going to take it away. If he was going to go inside, and I would always lobby. Any offensive coordinator that coached at the Rams during the time that I played will tell you that I drove them crazy asking them to give me every conceivable block that I had to make. I wanted to cut a guy off on the backside so he wouldn't get front side. I wanted to start to cut off like I'm cutting him off, and then throw him down inside as he worked to get to the backside. I wanted to drive block him. I wanted to hook him. I wanted to get him on the outside. I wanted to run every conceivable play that you could run so that I could force these guys, you know, to have to defend everything. And I had this thing in my head, you know, I said, the only thing that's consistent about your stance, you know, because the coaches used to tell us, get in the same stance all the time. They won't know what you're doing. Well, no, that wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to get in a stance that would allow me to do that particular job well, and then I could do one or two other things from that same stance, and the guys would never know what I was doing.
No kidding. Gosh. And did you ever have like a fake stance where I'd be light on my fingers, where it made it look like you were going to pass block, but then you'd fire out?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You put a lot of weight. You put a lot of weight on your hand, and then you bend your knees. But what you do is you take some of the stagger out of your stance so that you can propel your weight up and back on a pass block. You see? And so those were the type of things that I did and enjoyed doing. And it kind of took away, the more I thought about what I was doing to my individual opponent, the less I was concerned about him having success against me.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I don't want to take all of the Jackson State glory out of it. Vincent, please go ahead. I know you got a million questions regarding the early days where Jackie was getting a chance to bring it.
Okay, I got 3 questions I'm going to ask. First question, before I get into it, Mr. Slater, I want you to explain to everyone out there how serious that NFL talent was in the SWAC when you played. My second question, now I heard you talk about other people, but some people told me down in my hometown of Memphis, they want to know what was it like in practice, in your practice battles. And they used the cliche, fight the power by the Asley brothers. You going up against Dr. Doom, Robert Bazile. And number 3, my question is, what was the battle between you and Gary Big Hands Johnson?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Don't tell me about, you remember Gary Big Hands Johnson?
He was serious. 3
man.
points.
Oh, unbelievable, man. It makes me smile to think about it, but it's horrifying. Now, your first question.
Tell the people how serious that NFL talent was.
Let me tell you. When I got to Jackson State, on that roster, you had Robert Brazile, who was a 6th overall pick in 1975. I played with him 3 years. You had Walter Payton, who was the 4th overall pick in 1975. I played and blocked for him for 3 years. 2 years prior to that, we had Roscoe Word. And then we had the late Donald Reese from Mobile, Alabama, and John Tate. We had Vernon Perry. Man, I'm telling you. And then Grambling had Dwight Scales and Sammy White. And then they had Gary Big Hands Johnson. And they had Mike Barber and Ezel Bibbs. Man, let me tell you something. When I graduated after 4 years at Jackson State, I was fortunate enough they had a game called a College All-Star Game. And that College All-Star Game pitted a recently drafted group of guys against the defending Super Bowl champion, Pittsburgh Steelers. And this was the last game that they held. And I was the only African-American offensive lineman that was invited to this game that was recently drafted. And we were getting ready to play the Steelers. And when I got to this training camp, you may have heard me tell this story before, but when I got to this training camp, I was 3rd string every position, but I was number 1 step and fetch it. Hey, Jackie, can you go and drag those dummies down here those bags down here so we can hit them?
Yeah. We need some cones over here. Jackie, go get the cones.
Yeah, go get the cones. Go down there on the 3rd door on the right, and those extra playbooks in there, can you go down there and bring them up here? And I'm thinking to myself, and then when we get to practice, and we had a period where we step over here and put your hands on the man you're supposed to block, and step over there and put your hands on the man. And then we would step over there for 40 minutes, and then we break, and then we go down and have a live, where you got after each other pretty good, 9-on-7 and stuff like that. Well, over here in the step over there period, I stepped over there about 3 times or 4 times. And then we go down to the period where we were live and in pads, and I got to come off the ball about 3 or 4 times. And I'm thinking to myself, I just got married. I got everything I own in a green Foot Locker back there in that room, and I'm over here doing something I hadn't done ever before in my life, playing football, stepping and touching. So I said, this ain't gonna work. So the next day we came out after I figured out this is what we're gonna do. We came out, and I told one of the guys, I said, listen, we had our pads on. I said, listen, I'm gonna come off a little bit here. I'm coming off a little bit here. And so the guy put his hand, he dug in a little bit, and when everybody else was stepping, you could hear them pads. You hear those pads racking because I came off the ball. Well, as I said, I only got 2 or 3 of those at the end of the drill, and about that time the whistle blew. And then when the whistle blew, the coach stopped me. He said, listen, he said that you came off the ball too hard there. He said, we're going to do our hitting when we get down here. He said, I don't want that again. And so we ran on down there, and we went through the period. I got my 2 or 3 snaps at the end of the period. And so I went to my room that night, and I thought, man, this guy don't like me. I'm going to get blackballed or something. I said, I'm getting behind here because I'm not getting to practice the way I learned to play football. I said, well, I'm going to have to do it again. And at the worst, they'll just send me on out of here, and I can go to training camp in L.A. and start trying to make the team. So the very next day, I got no sleep that night. The very next day, I come out, and I told the same guy, I said, listen, man, I said, come on, I'm coming off a little bit. So I rolled. Boom, you can hear those pads clamor, all those. And so the guy jumped in there. And I'm going to tell you who the guy is. He's the father of the modern day passing game, Sid Gilman.
Oh, wow.
Sid Gilman ran. He said, I spoke to you about this. He said, you want to hit? He said, okay, he wants to hit. So I went 5 straight drive blocks, one-on-one drive block. Now that first 2 or 3, I got after them pretty good. But after that, they were slinging me around, throwing me around. And about that time, the whistle blew for us to go down to the scrimmage and start getting after each other. So I think he felt like he was going to just really show me and put me in there while I was huffing and puffing so I could get my rear end indoctrinated to what it was like to play at the big universities and play football. But what he hadn't figured out is that I done worked up. I done got in my comfort zone right now. And I want you to know, that from that point on, I was the starting guard in that game, in those practices and in that game. But I got to share this with you. I went to Sid Gilman at the end of the week with another week to go, and I said, Mr. Gilman, I said, I really appreciate you, showing me that you that you think I can play, putting me in the starting lineup. I said, but I'm not going to be able to play in this game. And he said, well, why aren't you going to be able to play in the game? I said, well, I just got married. I got everything I own in a green Foot Locker up there. And all of these other guys around me are just signing contracts left and right. I said, I can't afford to get hurt. I need to go to training camp so I can start, trying to make the team. And he pointed his finger in my face and said, listen, he said, I don't want you thinking about that. Only thing I want you thinking about is blocking Joe Green. That's the only thing I want you thinking. I'm thinking to myself, man, this old man don't understand. This ain't his life. This is my life. I'm getting ready. So I was at a quandary, right?
Yeah.
My agent had not called me that whole first week. I'm hoping get my deal done like everybody else. He hadn't called me the whole first week. And then 2 days after Sid Gilman said that to me, my agent called me and he said, Jackie, I finally got him to move. And I thought to myself, man, I wonder if Sid Gilman talked to him and what? So anyway, I ended up starting the game, playing in front of Joe Green. The game it's the only NFL game in NFL history that got called off because of inclement weather. It was raining and thundering and lightning, and the fans jumped on the field. And I broke the huddle and was walking to the line of scrimmage, and all you could see was those Chicago Bears colored raincoats sliding in behind the Pittsburgh Steelers defense there. And so they stopped the game. But this is what I want you to know. When I got to LA, the Rams had a guy there waiting to take me to California. He wouldn't let me go anywhere. He took me straight to the airport, straight to Cal State Fullerton, where the Rams were having training camp. And I'm ready to go get my gear and get my pads and get fitted out and everything. He said, no, you got to go see the general manager. And I'm thinking, why you got to go see the general manager? I need to get my stuff. He took me straight to the general manager. It was Don Klosterman.
Don Klosterman, yeah. Wow.
And Don Klosterman looked at me, sit down. I sit down. He said, you caused quite a stir there in Chicago. And I'm thinking, oh, man, this guy gave a bad word on me. He said, yeah. He said, I got a phone call from your coach. And I'm thinking, did Eric Parseghian get involved in it and call? Because he was the head coach. He said, no, Sid Gilman called me. I said, what did he say? He said, Sid Gilman called me and said, man, are you crazy? He said, not only do you have the best offensive lineman in this camp, you might have the best lineman in this camp. And that's what he told me. And I could not believe my ears that he was saying that. And he said, welcome. He said, now get on. We're going to finish up your contract. Now go on down there and get your equipment. It was unbelievable. And, that was the year that Leroy Selman and Steve Niehaus from Notre Dame were the top two picks of the new expansion teams, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks. And I got to be honest with you, Leroy Selman in that camp was the closest thing competitively that I experienced to Big Hands Johnson.
Was it his speed, power?
Leroy Selman,
all of the above.
Leroy Selman was explosively quick. Yeah. He was great. He had great strength. He was smart. He put pressure on you from the moment the ball was snapped. And that's what Gary Big Hands Johnson did. And I thought to myself, man, they got some real dudes here. But Leroy Selman was the only guy that I felt that way about.
Wow.
I'm just telling you.
Well, Vincent asked about Gary Big Hands. Real quick, Vincent, I want to follow up with that. Tell the folks that, how did this little rivalry begin? And you laughed like, oh, man, right? You're talking about that. So what does that mean to you? And go back a little bit from the beginning so our audience gets to know a little bit more about that that great competitive nature the two of you had.
Well, as you know, I mentioned earlier that Walter Payton was the 4th overall pick in 1975, and that Robert Brazile was the 6th overall NFL pick in the country in 1975. Well, the 8th overall pick in that same 1975 draft was Gary Big Hands Johnson from Grambling. And the first time I heard the name, the man had 3.5 sacks in the game. And he was average. he was he was averaging 3.5 sacks this particular season.
Wow.
And I'm playing right tackle. And I'm substituting on the defensive line sparingly on short yards and goal line situation. So we get ready to play Grambling, and the man moves me to guard. I'm moving you to guard this week, he said, our head coach. And I'm thinking, oh, don't you know Big Hands Johnson? I said that to myself. He moved me to play in front of Big Hands.
That's exactly why you got moved. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this guy, he's averaging 3.5 sacks a game. And I'm looking at him on tape, and I'm thinking, damn, this between him and Mike Barber and Ezel Bills with that rotation, nobody's blocking them. Nobody is blocking these guys. And I'm scared to death. I don't want no parts of it. I'm thinking the coach is trying to sabotage my efforts to get drafted and everything else. And so I remember going over there and learning the plays. That wasn't very difficult because we had a handful of stuff that we ran in addition to our passing schemes. And I'm just scared to death. This is big time. This is big time competition, big time physical competition. A guy that was obviously headed directly to the NFL, and just was going to be a miserable day. I remember we had a defensive line coach that had played with the Atlanta Falcons, and I talked to him all the way down there. It was a bus ride. We went on a bus from Jackson, Mississippi, down to Ruston, Louisiana to play there. And he was saying to me, he said, hey, all you got to do is just do all you can. And I thought to myself, do all you can. do all you can. This is Gary Big Hands Johnson, man. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to tell you no lie. And I'm glad I had this experience because it taught me, to respect people and to honor them for what they can do well, but not to fear people. And so I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that this guy's going to eat me alive. This guy's going to eat me alive. Well, anyway, the game went by that fast. And we lost the game. In fact, we should have won the game because Walter went over the right side and landed in the end zone a half a yard, and the referee ran up there and marked him a half a yard shy of the goal line on 4th down. And that not scoring cost us that game. But I remember sitting in the locker room after that game, and I'm exhausted. And all I could think about was I'm still in isolation mode with Gary Big Hands Johnson. And I'm trying to think, did he beat me here? Did he beat me there? Did he get me here? Did he get me there? I'm looking for the isolated situations in my mind where he might have had some success. And I'm sitting there just in a quandary, just going through my, the plays. And then, and then so about that time, the coach was talking. I wasn't listening to the word he was saying. And about that time, he said something about the media is coming in and da-da-da-da-da. So all of this happened. I'm sitting there still thinking, quandary about where he beat me, where he didn't. And so the guy came in. It was a white guy. If a white guy stepped in our locker room back in those days, he was press. Nobody else but media. And he came in. First thing he did was he interviewed our coach. And our coach said to him, and I'm sitting there still in the days maybe about 3 chairs away from the door. And the guy says, Coach, he said, you did a good job against Big Hands today. What was your plan? And it caught my attention because I'm still in my game mode thinking. It caught my attention, and I looked up at he and the guy, and he pointed at me. He said, "That is what we did." And that was the first time anybody ever interviewed me one question as an offensive lineman in all of my career. The first time. And he asked me 2 questions. Was he hard to block? What did you do? And I spit some stuff. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember that scenario. And I thought to myself, I think I just blocked Gary Big Hands Johnson. And it was unbelievable. That's kind of how it started. And I had nothing but respect for him. As you know, the 8th overall pick in the draft, you got to be doing something right? And I told you, 3.5 sacks a game, that's a lot of production.
Did he throw the wing at you? Did you make some collisions? Did you push harder than you did with other players and still just kind of I don't know how this play figured out. I got my hands full with this big dude, but he wasn't making tackles. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. And to say that I knew what I was doing every step of the way, no. I knew what we were trying to get accomplished, and I went about trying to get that accomplished, but it was very unorthodox, and I was all over the place, and at times flailing, at times grabbing, at times doing a little bit of everything to try to neutralize the guy.
Yeah.
And it all kind of went together to kind of get that accomplished. But by no means was it an easy chore.
Yeah, absolutely. Vincent, I'm sorry, you were going to ask another follow-up.
Mr. Slater.
Mm-hmm.
Opinion of Bob Hill, your coach.
Oh man.
Tell the truth.
I mean, that's a tough question for me.
Yes,
it's a real tough question for me because I wouldn't say that Bob Hill came to my house and recruited me. I signed a national letter of intent with Texas Southern University, Rod Page, who had just left Jackson State and gone there. And this was after I had already signed a national letter of intent early to go to Jackson State. When I returned home, Bob knew I had already signed and committed to go to Texas Southern, and he said, what do you want to do? And he convinced me to stay there. Your mother's here, your brothers are here, you want to be here around your family and help them out, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I flipped again, and I went to Jackson State. It was the existence at Jackson State on the football field at that particular time was grueling. It was unsafe. It was tough.
Yes, sir.
It was almost unimaginable compared to the football environments that I was in after my 4 years at Jackson State or before. I saw things occur with my teammates that I didn't like, that I didn't think were right. It was very difficult. But Bob Hill had played professional football. And the thing I guess I never had given him credit for is he did the things that he did to produce the players that he was producing was perhaps that he knew how tough it would be for us to survive in the environment that we aspired to play in.
Yes, sir.
Bob Hill changed me from a young man to a grown man. Do I endorse the measures that he took? No, I don't. The NC2A would still be talking about the violations. But every guy that left Jackson State and played pro football, if he didn't make the team that he signed with and went to, it wasn't because he wasn't working. It wasn't because he wasn't tactical. It wasn't because he didn't know how to get nasty. It wasn't because he didn't know how to compete. It wasn't because he didn't know how to operate in situations where were life-saving on the field for the team. All of that. survival skills were very well intact. It was just some of the scars that went along with it.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate certain aspects of what occurred during my 4 years at Jackson State. And then there's certain aspects of what occurred that I wholeheartedly condemn.
Mm.
That's all I got on that.
Yes, sir. And another question. The 76 draft, the name Dennis Lick, first offensive tackle from Wisconsin, 15th overall by the Chicago Bears. Was that motivation when you heard his name taken in the first round?
Well, I mean, I didn't know. I had no idea about Dennis Lick or who he was or where he came from or any of that. I didn't even know his name because I was only listening for my name.
Yes, sir.
And but when I met Dennis Lick was at the college all-star game.
Yes, sir.
And Dennis Lick was, I thought, he's one of those prototypical built guys, square body, thick from the ankles all the way up to the shoulders, wide. He didn't have very long arms and good arm range, but he was technically sound. Nobody was going to bull rush him and get by him. Nobody was going to beat him with a quick inside move or over the top with speed. He just was a very well coached, big athlete. And it got him on the field soon. I mean, he was a first round pick. He was a guy that you don't bring in and let sit on the bench. You put him in and let him start competing against the best right now, and he's going to grow. And I watched him, and of the guys that that I played with in that college all-star game, he was one of the best and one of the most consistent ones. It was really coincidental in that I saw the starting two left tackles of the Buffalo Bills at that time. They played in an all-star game with me and Dennis Lick. But one of the guys was a converted defensive tackle who had played defensive tackle all his college career that the Buffalo Bills drafted and converted to an offensive tackle. And I believe it was a left tackle. And they played those two tackles in Buffalo. You can go check it out, get their names from 76 to about 86. Those two tackles in Buffalo were starters for 10 years. And this guy was drafted, the left tackle, I believe, was drafted ahead of me. And he had been a defensive lineman all of his college career. So I followed those guys and I watched them. And Dennis Lick was, I was impressed with him because he was blocking for Walter Payton. And I always appreciated him. So anyway, Dennis Lick was a good football player.
Back to you, Hawk.
Well, Jackie, you're going to Los Angeles amidst the draft, and you told us the story about you and the All-Star game and all that kind of stuff. Don Klosterman was at Shaw. He took over for Georgia when she was there. But God, I'm looking at some of the names here. The number one pick, first round, was Leroy. You've talked a little bit about Leroy. Chuck Muncie, Joe Washington, Hall of Famer Michael Haynes, Mike Pruitt, Kim Baumgartner, Tim Fox was a Pro Bowler, Pat Thomas. That's just your first and second round. Sammy White. Was there ever a point that you were you know what? I'm a fan. I love the game. I love the game of football, whether it be the college or the pro game. And I know enough of these guys, and I'm watching them succeed, where there's a mesh between your joy of watching other people that have great talent and also the joy of saying, I'm a professional and I'm a part of this too. And I'm a cog in this wheel, and we're going to keep this machine going.
Well, to answer your question, I would say emphatically, absolutely not. I had no idea who over half the first round picks were in 76. I had no idea who they were.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying attention to that kind of football. I was paying attention to what was going on in the SWAC. You know
Swag.
what? You know, I had heard about Too Tall Jones being the second overall pick in the draft out of Tennessee. I'd heard, I heard that Grambling had a bunch of guys. I mean, you know, there was a ton of guys. The Barkums, Jerome Barkham out of Jackson State, Leon Gray. You know, there were some guys that the guys that I heard of were all playing at HBC football. They weren't playing. They weren't playing at Ole Miss or Mississippi State. By the way, neither one of those schools recruited me when I came out. You know, I got recruited by Jackson State. I got recruited by Alcorn. I got recruited by Grambling and Southern and Texas Southern, as I said earlier, and Prairie View. These were the people that showed me the interest. And, you know, as a young kid in Jackson, Mississippi, growing up in the late 60s and 70s, you know, first of all, I didn't watch that much sports, and the sports that I did watch centered around, you know, the guys that were playing high school football and there at Jackson State. And so, you know, when I began to look around at other teams and these names that you're referring to, I had to learn about Dennis Lick. I had to learn about Joe Washington, little Joe from Kokomo. I used to tease him and call him. I had to learn about the Rams' first round pick, Kevin McClain, who was drafted 2 picks ahead of me, and McCarthy out of Tennessee, who was drafted 1 round ahead. I had to learn about these guys. I didn't know anything about them. And I just assumed that, you know, if they were drafted, I'm a 3rd round pick, and all these guys getting drafted ahead of me, they must be a whole lot better. And I got my work cut out for me because I'm going into the same arena to compete with these people. And so I didn't know who they were, didn't know their reputations. I just assumed that they were better. And I just assumed that there was a different level I had to go to play football with these guys. That's it.
Well, very interesting. And then now you're put with the Rams. Chuck Knox was the head coach. I'm sorry, Vincent, you go ahead. Go right ahead.
See, I don't want to start nothing today, but that's why I tell everybody in the 60s and the 70s, I hope everybody listened to what Mr. Slater said. It was fire down in the SWAC. You had to be a man, a real man. Mario Kasem at Alcorn State, John Merritt at Tennessee State.
Absolutely.
We heard from the Hall of Famer, Mr. Jackie Sherrill, what he said about Bob Hill. So a lot of people weren't built for that. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, just a different toughness and speed and power, and it just, I want my chance. I want to get a chance. Let me go into camp. Chuck Knox was the head coach. Is that right with the Rams when you first got there?
Yeah, I had 2 tenures with Chuck Knox. He drafted me, and then at the end of my career, he came back and I played a year for him before the team went to St. Louis.
I tease that Chuck started every sentence with "Hey, let me tell you," or "See." He had that sparkly Pennsylvania.
Where did you play with him? Play for
Seattle.
him at?
I was up there in Seattle with him.
Oh, you were? Wow.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Chuck had that little pot belly. Now, he didn't have a pot belly when you got him, and he'd wear that Rams hat. He always had it on.
Yeah, a little crooked like that, a little crooked.
Just a little bit. But my gosh, that whole decade, the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Vikings, you get there right in the middle of all that. And it took you 3 years before you get in this game right here. We'll talk about the Super Bowl a little bit, but when you first get to LA, there's lots of stars, there's lots of shining, bright twinkles and everything like that. There was some hard work that you needed to do, wasn't there?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I tell people all the time, you know, when I first started at Jackson State, I had to learn how to be a savvy technician, a guy that played off schedule, a guy that did anything conceivable to get into the head of the guy that I'm competing against so that I can get the advantage. And that was fun learning and growing through. But when I came to the Rams, I had to, it was my first exposure, obviously, to real pros. I had to practice against Jack Youngblood.
Yep.
And I tell people all the time, you know, the best thing that ever happened, one of the best things that happened to me in my career was going against Jack Youngblood in practice that first couple of years. I mean, I couldn't block the guy. I mean, he was smart, he was quick, he was explosive, He was fast, and he's always thinking, always thinking. And that's the thing that amazed me about him. It made me conclude that you had to be a thinking man's football player to have any success in this league. Because if you don't, you're not going to block guys like Jack Youngblood. And I remember us playing Minnesota, and here two Hall of Famers are Ron Yeri for the Minnesota Vikings, who later played his last year with the Rams, going against Jack Youngblood. And to watch those two guys get after each other, with Jack Youngblood usually, coming up on top, I'd have to admit, it was amazing, man. And I remember thinking to myself, I got a long ways to go before I can consistently compete with a guy like this. And I've worked. I mean, Jack would probably tell you that I worked really, really hard to try to, block him in practice, and when he was working in all his drills and stuff, and it made a difference. It really helped me to grow up, and not to mention Fred Dreyer on the other side and Larry Brooks when I lined up in front. I mean, they were just pros, man. Chuck Knox assembled. You know how he was about defensive football. He was going to stop you if he couldn't do anything. He was going to stop you, and he was going to run the ball if he didn't do anything else.
Yeah.
And so these guys were just tremendous. I was very fortunate, man. When I came to the Rams, you had Jack Youngblood, you had Fred Dreyer, you had Larry Brooks, you had Mike Fanning.
Yeah.
Mike Fanning, the first pick out of the year before I got to the Rams, they had 3 first-round picks. They drafted Mike Fanning out of Notre Dame. He was scheduled to replace Marilyn Olsen. They drafted Dennis Harrer out of Miami, of Ohio, and he was scheduled to replace the 15-year veteran Joe Schiavelli. And then they drafted Doug France out of Ohio State, who was scheduled to replace Charlie Cowan. All these guys are 15 and 14-year guys. And so they was, these guys were talented, man. They were the cream of the crop. And to go there and to watch them compete in their second year against that defensive line, Cody Jones. I don't know if you remember Cody Jones, man, but
of course, yeah.
These guys were fantastic football players on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Chuck Knox had just loaded up. Jim Youngblood was over there, and Dave Elmendorf and Bill Simpson were the safeties.
Carl Eckern, Robertson,
I'm sorry, Carl Eckern.
Nolan Cromwell.
Nolan Cromwell was over there. Carl Eckern and I, we came to the Rams the same year I was the 3rd-round pick and he was the 5th-round pick, and we were born on the exact same day, May 27th. So we shared that. Yeah, we shared that, and he was an interesting guy. He got to play a whole lot.
Did you have to sing in rookie camp? Did you both have to sing the same song? Having the same birthdays?
No, but we did have to sing. There's no doubt about it. Rookies were going to have to sing, and I wasn't familiar with that. And I was a little reluctant to get up and sing and make a fool of myself. And I remember Marilyn Olsen came over to me one day and he said, "Hey, Jackie," he said, they're not picking on you personally. Everybody has to do this. It's just a part of the, hazing, just welcoming you to the club kind of thing, So to make up your mind, just get on up there and sing something. So when I finally got up, everybody cheered and gave me a standing ovation. And I sounded horrible, but it's just that I wasn't used to that, that kind of hazing. And certainly I will share this with you. Certainly, being in an integrated environment like that, the integrated environments that I had been in were arduous, and they were very difficult, and they were the environments that had to be overseen. And so I wasn't. It took me a time to get used to being in an integrated environment, because I was in the 10th grade when they forced integration in the state of Mississippi before I ever went to school with a white person.
Wow.
So I had some learning. To do growing up.
Did you learn anything from the Larry Brooks, Jack Youngblood relationship? Those two, they were thick as thieves. They went everywhere together, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was odd. They truly were the odd couple, because here you had a 6'3", 290-pound defensive tackle, black, and then you got the golden boy of Southern California, Jack Youngblood, blonde hair, glistening eyes, wearing, and both of them dressed with boots and jeans and big
Yep.
belt buckles on their belts and
Then
everything like
they
that. Yeah, like Tonto and
bucks.
Kemosabe.
They'd
Tonto
go
and
big.
Kemosabe. Huh?
Yeah.
They were really the odd couple. They actually opened a store. They sold country western attire, and they were really, they were some interesting guys. They were buds. There ain't no doubt about it, and everybody admired them. But they anchored the Rams defense, for a number of years.
No kidding. Yeah. Well, it took a little while, but you finally get to the Super Bowl. The first time you get to go is 1980. What was that like? Do you remember anything specifically about that year that made you think at one point or another, we're pretty good, and I think we got a chance to take the Vikings or the Cowboys on this time?
Yeah, well, first of all, you said the first time I played in the Super Bowl, I only played in one Super Bowl. Don't get me confused with Matthew Slater, who played in five and won three of them.
No,
But
yeah.
what
I,
it was. Go ahead.
I need to apologize to five versus one. There's a big difference, right?
As a
Daddy only got to play in one.
Yeah, and losing one and winning three is a big difference too.
No kidding. Yeah.
But anyway, it was we went 9-7 that year. No one expected anything of us. We got hot with our receivers and our quarterback Vince Ferragamo down the stretch. Our offensive line was beat up. We only had two guys on our offensive line to start and play every game that year. It was our center, Rich Saul,
Yeah.
and myself at right tackle, and I was in my first year as a starter. So it was a
So
feeble. Hera, Doug France, Greg Horton was in and out of the lineup. I mean, Kent Hill was he was a rookie. He was a rookie, and I was in my fourth year, and my first year as a starter. So basically, I was a rookie. So now we're playing against me and Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood, Dwight White. We're playing against these guys, and they've been to what, I don't know, 100 Super Bowls by the time they got to us. But when I look back on that game, the thing that I remember most is that with 11 minutes to go in the game, we had the lead.
Yes, you did.
And we had the momentum. And to that point, I wouldn't say that Joe Green or they had made their plays here and there, but they hadn't dominated the game like you would have expected them to do with a young, inexperienced offensive line like we had. So I was, when I left that game after a 9-7 regular season, I remember thinking to myself, next year we can beat these guys because we almost got them this time. But as you know, next year and the Super Bowl never came.
No kidding. Wow. Vincent, go ahead, please.
I want you, before we move on, you forgot, Mr. Slater, to talk about them two corners you had that was gloves. My man out of Texas A&M, Mr. Patrick Thomas.
Pat Thomas.
And my boy Rob Perry. And Leroy Irvin.
It's funny that you mention all of these guys because they're coming out just this next week. Well, on the 25th, they're going to be here in Southern California at a Rams not a reunion, but they're, annually the Rams invite some of their former players to come to training camp. And Leroy, and who's living down in Mexico, doing a lot of good work with some of the kids, helping to build an orphanage actually down there. Leroy Irvin is coming. Pat Thomas, I got a text message from him the other day. He and his wife Leah coming, and Rod Perry, he and his wife are going to be coming. So it's going to be good to see those guys. I used to tease those guys all the time. Both of them are like 5'8", 5'9", short, little short, quick, explosive guys, tough as nails. Pat Thomas was arguably the most dangerous football player that I ever played with, because I saw him take some guys' legs completely out. I'm thinking, man, how do you get up and walk after that guy? It's like a torpedo hitting you right in the knee. And how do you get up and walk when Pat Thomas nails you like that? But both of them were competitors. I played with them. I played with Pat, I think 6 or 7 years, and I played with Rod about the same distance, even though Rod was a year ahead of Pat and myself. Pat and I were in the same draft. He was a second-round pick. I was a third-round pick in 76. And Rod Perry was a fourth-round pick in 75. So he came in with Dennis Harrer, and Doug France and Mike Fanning. But they were some great guys. And I used to, to this day, I talk to these guys, those two in particular, because I always thought if there was another position that I could play, if there was another position that I would really want to play, it would be corner. So all of my career, I always would have these conversations with these little cornerbacks and, tease them about this and that and the other, and just enjoy them because I thought they were spectacular athletes. I mean, the things that they could do versus what some of the safeties could do, even though Nolan Cromwell was quite an athlete. But the things that those corners can do versus, I see why they pay those guys the way they do even today, because they're you can't place a value on a really good corner. Those guys you have to take care of them.
And two other players I want to mention off that Super Bowl team. My man, the stud out of Colorado, Cullen Bryant,
Oh my
and
goodness.
pretty boy Preston Denard.
Oh my goodness. Where you know these guys from? Do you know these guys, Mr. Turner?
No, that's what I love to do, Mr. Slater. I love the history of the game.
Hey man, listen. Preston Denard could catch a BB in the dark with shades on. I mean, that dude was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. Always friendly, always smiling, never saw him down. If he got down, it was only because he dropped a pass or something like that. And Cullen Bryant, oh, God rest his soul. That was the strongest human being that I have ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he'd go in there in the weight room, man. He'd have three plates on in his second set. And I'm thinking, how's this guy getting? This is a fullback. They need to take him and make him an offensive guard or something, man. He was tall enough, and he weighed 230 pounds, and it's just nothing but muscles packed in on his frame. He was an unbelievable example in the weight room, man. That when I saw Cullen Bryant lift weights, I thought to myself, I got a long ways to go. I got a long way.
Back to you, Hop.
Well, I can imagine though that you really enjoyed having that guy being, an ISO with him on inside linebacker one-on-one. I bet the collisions there were a sight in and of itself. He'd blow holes open for Lawrence McCutcheon or any of the other guys that were in the backfield. Wendell Tyler, you played for 100 different great running backs during. We'll get to Eric in a minute, but some of the early days and just guys that are teaching. Remember, we mentioned student of the game, guys that are teaching you how do you play, how do you stay into this business for as long as you possibly can, and you're in the club, and you're a welcomed sight by the time you get into that 1980 Super Bowl.
Well, I don't know if I was in the club or a welcome sight. I don't know how the older guys felt about me at that time. I was an upstart. I was in my fourth season, my first year as a starter. And I tell people all the time, they said, man, why did they do you like that? Why didn't they let you play your first 3 years? Well, because primarily I couldn't block my way out of a wet paper bag. I mean, it was just, the game was happening way faster than I was able to handle it at that time with all of the plays. I mean, we probably had more play. I had to learn more plays when I first came to the Rams, more plays. And I'm talking about the way they were compartmentalized: inside runs, outside runs, counters, traps, powers, weak side counters. Then you got protections, you got 3-step drops, you got 5-step drops, you got 7-step drops, in addition to play action curves. I mean, that was just a lot of stuff to run and to learn. And then some of those protections were tied to the actual concept itself. If they were going to run a 989 F-rub sneak, then we're supposed to know that our quarterback is going to take, because he said 989, that our quarterback is going to take a 7-step drop and hold the ball longer, instead of them spitting the protection out to us so that we know that it's long protection. We got to interpret the depth of the routes and execute the protection. And these were the kind of things that probably kept me on the bench, because I had never had to do that, and I never had to learn that volume of material that the pros demanded. And I found out from other people as the years went by that it wasn't unusual. Everybody had to do it, and I think even when they drafted offensive linemen back in those days, they knew that the offensive lineman, like Dennis Lick, they probably knew that Dennis Lick had been exposed to many more plays offensively than maybe I had. You know, many more different concepts, many more different, uh, get audibles and getting in and out of good and bad plays and different things like that. And I just never had done it before, and it was a chore learning that stuff.
And then the speed at which you learn it. Red, right, tight, hum, scat, 23 Texas, H
Right.
flat.
Oh my goodness.
And then
Oh my goodness.
from the time you
Yeah.
clap, ready, break, to you're walking, what did he just say? And how do I break that code down? And am I going to the right spot? And then
Absolutely.
you got to block an all pro on the other end of the
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I what I learned was I learned that I can't handle red right. I got to know red right as it relates to the strength of the formation. But if he gave us a protection, it didn't matter to me whether the tight end was there or he was on the other side. If it was a drop back, it mattered to me if it was a play action.
Sure.
So if red were to denote play action, you know, then I know now, I know now that at least I got a back coming to me or away from me, and the line turning to me or away from me. So I was able to pick up those, once you catch on to the nuances of your offensive coordinator and actually what everything means, you have to learn what everything means.
Yeah.
And then you learn what the coordinator wants to do. Does he want to turn the protection to the boundary because they like to bring this guy from the boundary as a pass rusher? Does he want to send the extra blockers to the field because they like dropping the safety in there late and blitzing him as a big physical guy that can rush the quarterback? So all of those little pieces you have to learn in addition to being prepared to deal with a guy that's sitting 6 inches outside of your right shoulder that you got to block.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of stuff to learn.
Learning what to turn on and turn off in your ears. I need to listen for this, but don't forget if it's a double reverse and they mention that at the end of the play, I better remember all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Hey, you went through Chuck Knox, then Ray Malavasi. When John Robinson gets the job, Hudson Hawk comes in. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Hudson and how spending time with him really helped develop you into being, a Pro Bowler.
Well, I got to be perfectly honest with you. I feel that Hudson Houck is the best offensive line coach that I have ever known. And I'm going to say that again. I think that Hudson Houck. I want to say this I want to get this on record because I might just send it to him. I think that Hudson Houck is the best offensive line coach that I had, and perhaps the best that I have ever known. I met Hudson when he was at USC, when John Robinson was still coaching there. He would come down and watch what Dan Radakovich, who had come from the Pittsburgh Steelers, was teaching us. And I never saw him much after that. Didn't know who he was. I just saw the little bald-head guy over there taking notes. Well, the thing that I did notice was that at USC, they were pumping out Brad Buddy and Don Mosbar and Anthony Munoz, all these guys in the first round. Yeah. And I'm thinking, who is the coaching these guys, man? These guys are coming in the league ready to roll right now. And then all of a sudden, John Robinson comes to the Rams with the offensive line coach from USC that's coaching all these guys. And it's the little bald head man that's been taking the notes all the time. It's Hudson Houck. And I'm telling you, he challenged me on some things early in my career, some things that I didn't believe in that were hurting the success I had. By the time he came, I had finished 7 years. I had never been voted to a Pro Bowl. I had never been given any honor whatsoever. And he came in teaching some things about losing ground to gain position and play with power and all of these things. I'm thinking, man, I'm used to attacking right now. Why would I lose ground, let people hit me in the lips and stuff like that? Well, I fought him on it. And I finally felt like these guys are getting ready to get rid of me, because I'm getting stuck. I got a bad back here to start with, and, they're going to get somebody else better than me. So I went to Hudson. I said, listen, man, I said, what you're teaching here, I've never done it before. I said, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it an effort. And, and we see. He said, "That's all I'm asking you to do is give it an effort."
Yeah.
I started losing ground to gain position, and the position that was gaining was knocking a guy 3 yards in the 3 yards in his linebacker's lap. I mean, Hudson Howe took my game to a level that I never thought could ever happen, as a pass blocker, as a run blocker, and in his first season with the Rams was the first year that I went to a Pro Bowl.
Oh
It
wow.
was, and I think it was the first year of 4 different occasions that I was voted the offensive lineman of the year in the NFC. And I attribute that to a lot of hard work, but to the knowledge of playing the position that I acquired from Hudson Howe. There's no doubt about that. And if you go and look at the record, one of the things you'll see is that he wasn't just producing guys like me, but we sent 21 different Pro Bowl acknowledgments during his 9-year tenure at the Rams. And
Everybody got better, right? Everybody got better, right?
everybody got better. There's
Your
no doubt
post
about it.
foot, your post foot, your kick, your technique, your ability to stay within yourself
Absolutely.
with power and not have to overextend and let them come to
Absolutely.
you. Gosh,
Oh.
just the technique and everything about it was just it was. Go ahead, Jackie. I'm sorry. I'm speaking.
You sound like you played for Hudson Howe.
Well, Ken Rutgers taught me a thing or two when he was at SC, and he made a big difference in Ken. You know, Ken was a #1 guy. I know some of these names, the people that made a difference in so many other guys. I love it. I'd love to have Hudson come on and say, "Oh well, you know, shucks, I just doing my job." No, you knew something that somebody else didn't know, and you passed it on to all your guys, and they were better because of you. That's the salute I give to everybody who did that.
Right. And he was one of the very best at doing it. When I got voted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I was torn, really torn, because I wanted to honor someone who had made it really special for me, and it was simple. It was going to either be John Robinson or Hudson Howe. Hudson Howe or John Robinson. I should have had them both do it.
Yeah.
But I chose John Robinson because, you know, I had 5 head coaches, counting a 2-year tenure with Chuck Knox. And John Robinson was the only coach that I had that did in the pros that didn't make the offensive linemen feel like turds. He handpicked his captains every year, and at least 3 of them were offensive linemen. He's so important our position that you couldn't help but to have respect for him. And Hudson, he did marvelous things, not only for me but for other players. But I just had to pick John Robinson because everybody else would have came to the offensive line would be screaming at him to keep from screaming at the quarterback or the running back or anybody else. But John Robinson didn't do that. He treated us like we were the royal stallions on the line. And that's what I always appreciate about him.
Well, the foundation has to start somewhere, right? And it starts with the big 5 uglies, down the line. Go ahead, Vincent.
Let's get to the real question of the day. People in Memphis, Tennessee wanted me to ask you this, Mr. Slater.
Mm-hmm.
How special was that man out of Sealy, Texas, by way of SMU, the Pony Express, Mr. E.D. Eric Dickerson?
Eric Dickerson. Wow. You know, from the moment that young man came, I'm looking at him. He got his goggles on. He's long and spindly. You know, he doesn't fit the Walter Payton mold. He doesn't fit the Wendell Tyler mold. He doesn't fit the scoot around, dash, and change direction guys. You know, he's just tall and lanky, almost as tall as me. I'm thinking, why in the world would they go out and draft a running back this tall and lanky and bring him in here knowing that he's going to get battered and beat around? And I'm just at a quandary. I don't know them. I said maybe they'll switch him to wide receiver before too long, and look like he can gain enough weight to be a tight end, perhaps. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, this coach from the college ranks, you know, John Robinson, he done lost his mind, his ever-loving mind, drafting a guy this tall. And Lord have mercy.
Mm.
He would never go as fast in practice as he did in games. He would come through and he would run in there and, you know, go towards the hole. And if there was enough room, he would go on through at that time. If it wasn't, he'd just ease on up in that direction. He wasn't running 15 yards down the field every time they gave him the ball in practice, but he was always running where the ball was supposed to insert. And I just didn't like that. I was used to short, quick, explosive quickness. Let me see it all the time. I want to see it. I want to know that I can spring you. But Lord have mercy. When we started playing football, that dude, he made me go, I can't believe it. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Nobody can catch him. Nobody can run. I remember one time we ran a counter where the backside guard and tackle was pulling. I was supposed to step to the inside, get my guy to bite, club him down inside, and the ball was supposed to go outside of me. I stepped to the inside. The guy hung on my outside shoulder, blasted me, and I had to drag him in, but I didn't throw him down in there far enough. The backside guard got picked off. The backside tackle bumped, and it bumped Eric a little bit wider. And when I rolled on over and set up, the ball was like 30 yards down the field with everybody trying to catch him. I thought to myself, how did he get down there that fast? When I went back and we looked at the film, it was just amazing. Eric Dickerson, every week, every single week of his rookie season, had a dynamic run that put you in awe. Yeah. Every week. Maybe, you know, you remember that you remember the play where the kid at Philadelphia jumped up backwards over the defenders in the Super Bowl. You remember that? Saquon Barkley. You remember that move he did? Yes. It's going to be we'll be watching that for the rest of our lives, right?
No kidding, right?
But if they go and pull up some film from Eric's rookie year, I guarantee you they got 4, 5, or 6 plays just like that where he's doing all that kind of crazy stuff, man. This dude, this dude, and this is what I like most about Eric. He appreciated his offensive line and the way we work. I like to think that I had a very good work ethic. I enjoyed practice. I enjoyed working hard. I was trying to chase the rhythm that I was going to play with in the game. I was trying to chase that rhythm in practice. I felt like they'd give me the best chance to be successful. Eric came up to me one day and he said, and this is his rookie year. He said, Jack, he said, have you ever been to a Pro Bowl? I said, no, I haven't. He looked me right in my eye. He said, you're going this year. He said, you're going this year. And I'll be doggone. Not only did I go, but I was voted the offensive lineman of the year his first year with the team. I mean, it was just, you know, I played with some good backs, man. Walter Payton and him and 6 other guys that had 1,000 yards rushing, but none of them had 2,103 yards. None of them had that, man. And you know, they might have been capable if we had done a better job up front, but there was a lot of times where I wasn't quite getting it done. That dude still got 15, 20 yards. You know, yeah. Eric Dickerson was special. No doubt about it.
Go ahead, Vincent.
Yeah, I think one of the plays his rookie year when y'all was playing the Jets in Shea Stadium, and he broke
83 yards.
And I ran Jerry Holmes the corner to the end zone.
He stumbled.
Yeah, he had that Olympic speed like what's my boy Carl Lewis and them long strides.
Yeah, it wasn't even. I mean, the guy. Did you notice at the end of that run how the guy lost his balance trying to catch him? It was just an unbelievable. That, by the way, that particular game was the game that the highest amount of combined fines against 2 teams were levied in that game, in that particular game, because that was the game that we had the bench clearing brawl with Mark Gastineau and his shenanigans.
You had something to do with that, Jackie.
Just a little bit, just a
yeah,
little bit, guys.
Now Mark didn't need to go all crazy when he sacked Vince for that one,
No,
but
he didn't.
And you took offense to that. You go get off my quarterback for one, young man, and then get off the field.
Absolutely. I was a little disappointed, but what are you gonna say? I acted out of character, gave him a little shove, and next thing I know, we had one guy that came off the bench and grabbed him by the face mask and literally was trying to break his jaw. Yeah. He threw so many punches, uppercuts up underneath that boy's face mask that I'm thinking, then he's not gonna have any jaw left underneath there. But it was a great memory, and we all had a good day that day. Fellas, I'm looking at my battery on both my pieces of equipment right here, and it looks like I'm getting ready to that baby's going to shut down here in about 9%.
Okay. Well, you gave a couple of bucks to charity that day, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate, however, because the owner called me in and said, I can't tell you exactly what he said, but he said, I'm playing your fine myself. And
really?
I thought, wow, that's awfully nice of you. I guess Mr. Gastineau was not everyone's favorite at that time.
No. Let me ask some of your favorites, if you don't mind. Bill Bain.
Chili Billy Bain just doing his thing.
Tony Slayton, Irv Pankey, Kent Hill, Dennis Hara, Russ Bollinger. This is an 85 roster.
Unbelievable.
I want to talk a little bit about the 85 Rams that year. You start 7-0, and then you finish 11-5. You beat the Cowboys in Anaheim. You whoop up on them in a way that
hadn't been happening.
Like to see happen. And then tell me what it was like going to Chicago.
I remember going to Chicago and thinking to myself, we got Dieter Brock here. We got Eric Dickerson here. We might have a chance. They played an 8-man front throughout most of the game.
Yep.
And they had very little respect for our vertical passing game. And I know why. I knew why after the first couple of series. That win, we had just lost, in my opinion, one of the best pure passers the Rams had ever had in Vince Ferragamo. And when Dieter Brock made his passes at Soldier Field, those balls were floating.
Yeah.
The wind would take those balls looked like frisbees in the wind. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, 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 down, up, down, up, down. It was amazing to watch a football do that when I had seen guys like Vince Ferragamo, big, tall guy with a high overhand pass that came out and pierced the wind. And, once they figured out that he threw the ball at receivers that were running open a few times. Because remember, the Bears played an 8-man front. They were not going to let you run the ball on them. Nope. And they put a lot on their corners. But that particular day, their corners had they had the wind, and they had the fact that our quarterback wasn't able to throw the ball.
Wasn't that the first start that Dieter had since he'd been injured? Didn't Jeff Kemp beat the Cowboys? Was he behind the
They were in and out. They were in and out. They were in and out. I don't remember the particulars of who was there and who wasn't and all of that. I really don't remember it. But I just remember what was happening to the ball, and I remember how they played the 8-man front consistently because they weren't going to let Eric beat them. No. And we looked at some of the blocking schemes that we had done, and everybody was covered up except that extra guy. Extra guy that day, and that extra guy made the play just like they had it designed. So I think our passing game, our inability to throw the football in the wind that day was what really hurt us against the Bears. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from the Fridge and Richard Dent and Mike Michael, who, God rest his soul, just passed away. Nothing, Singletary, nothing away from these guys. Nothing.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. Well, Jimmy Mack himself used to say something. He goes, hey, you want to know how to beat this 4-6 defense? You run play action, you hit the tight end over the middle, and then you've got ISO man coverage on both of the corners. And the
Right.
only team they lost to that year was Dan Marino, where guess what? If you max protect for Dan, he's going to let Duper or
Right.
Clayton run
Right.
deep, and he didn't have to worry about the wind down there in
Right.
South Miami.
Absolutely.
And one-on-one, they couldn't cover that as well as they probably should with some other teams. But you're not going to
Absolutely.
run against them. Oh my
No.
gosh, what an amazing team!
Nobody's going to run against them. You can just forget about that.
Yeah. And what about when they cheered for the snow, when it got that little thing of cold there at the very end of the ball game in the fourth quarter? The fans.
Yeah, the fans.
You're on the wrong
The
end.
fans.
Very special.
I never get mad at the fans. I mean, the fans are supportive. I think the Rams have had a group of people that have supported them over the years. Certainly since I've been out here, their families, many of them are older now, and their kids and supporting the Rams because their dad, their uncle, their grandma, and all of that. The Rams have had a good following, and I think it's growing now that they're winning with Sean McVay and everything. But it wasn't at that particular time. I mean, we were in Chicago, and all you could see was the Chicago Bears and everything like that. Guys, you know what? I've had really enjoyed visiting with you. I've been waiting on this phone call from my son all day long, and I need to take this call. It's very important. I can. If you give me 1 minute, can you take a break?
Well, what we do, you pick that real quick. We'll turn you off for a second, and then
Okay.
if you want to come join us, yeah, please take that. Guys, we just want to say thank you for Jackie. I know this is getting near the end. We may lose some connectivity with him. Vincent, this could go on for another hour and a half, couldn't it?
Hey, I want to ask him about some of the players he played against. That some of the great pass rushers in that game, from LT, Lawrence Taylor, Derek Thomas, Howie Long. Yes, sir. We got a lot of questions for Mr. Slater. A lot of great football knowledge today. If I had to give a grade to the class, A plus. Yeah. Nothing better here on 100 Yards of Football.
But Charles
Okay,
Mann.
guys, I'm back.
Okay, we were just going to ask about Charles Mann, Reggie White, LT, Leonard Marshall. You know, there's some guys that you've gone up against. Come on now, there's some Pro Bowlers.
What would make you, Mr. Harper?
Yes, sir.
You asked me to do the podcast. Why would you want to inflict pain on my brain? Why would you want to do that? Do you think that's fair? You think that's fair after I've spent this hour with you
I'm always allowed to
have me to regurgitate what happened with me and some of those men? Oh my goodness. I'm disappointed in you, Mr. Harper.
A real quick story, Jackie, if you don't mind. When I'm in Atlanta, I just come from Philadelphia. I played with Buddy Ryan's last year there with the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And the Falcons' offensive line consisted of Mike Ken, Houston Hoover, Jamie Dukes, Bill Fralick, and Chris Hinton. We had just gotten Chris Hinton from
Baltimore,
Indianapolis. Yeah. And I watched Chris Hinton and Reggie White go at it. I'm getting ready to go in, and I'm just watching these two. What an epic battle. And I've told Chris on a number of occasions, I said, that was worth the price of admission, watching the two of you go at each other the way that you did, on a run, on a pass protect, on an outside, inside, opposite side of the field. And Jackie, you've been in so many of those just amazing matchups against a guy where I'm going to get paid everything. I'm going to earn every penny of my paycheck today because I'm going against somebody that is really an NFL legend, and I'm going to hold my own against him, just like you did
every penny
against Johnson.
Every penny.
Hold on, Vincent. Yeah, hold on. Go ahead, Jackie.
No, I'm just saying, you're absolutely right. These men make you earn every single penny that you make because they're great players and they want to be great and they're motivated. I mean, I just don't, it's just hard to imagine me dealing with Reggie White and Too Tall Jones, Mark Gastineau when he was the biggest, fastest athlete I played against in my career was Mark Gastineau.
Yeah.
Just the threat that his body, brought to the table. I mean, George Martin of the New York Giants. You guys probably don't remember him, but I'm telling you, man, these guys, these guys were special. That's all I can say. just
Dave
can't say
Bucks,
enough.
Charles Mann, Grant. I mean, you go against some of the, and to me, Jackie, when you got the 4 defensive linemen on another club, or if you're going against a 3-4, you mentioned George Martin and then Leonard Marshall. Carl Banks hit me as hard as anybody has ever hit me in my life before. Everyone gives LT credit for being as good, and he is. But you know what? On the opposite side of him, he had another Pro Bowl caliber guy that was a full-grown man that everyone in the league goes, we're not going to be able to run very well against those cats either. Hampton, McMichael, the Fridge, Richard Dent, Wilbur Marshall. All of these guys could play.
All of them could play. Dan Hampton, don't forget about him. I mean, it's good to reminisce and feel safe in my house at my age and not having the thought of dealing with that anymore.
And no more nightmares, right?
Until
I ask.
One of the things that amazes me about myself is I'm still trying to figure out how to do it because I couldn't do it now if my life depended on it. I could be tossing and turning and blocking all night long and then go out there and play these guys. Got no sleep whatsoever. Right. Sweaty, waking up sweaty, brain tired, exhausted mentally because I'm getting up 3 hours early on the East Coast against these guys. And then go out there and play against them. Because all you do all night long is just see them beating people. See them having success. And it's just, it was the most horrific 2 days that you can imagine a person having, getting ready to play against a guy like Reggie White or Howie Long or Richard Dent. It was just amazing. Sometimes I don't know how I made it, fellas.
Yes, sir.
Because you were good. Go ahead, Vincent. Go ahead.
Well, one of my final questions, I'm gonna throw some names in there. What about the New Orleans Saints linebacker core? Von Johnson and Pat Sweeney. And then who I think had the quickest first step. I never played no down in the NFL, but this is the question I thought about last night. What was it like blocking against that boy? He was young, but he was kind of a veteran in the league. My man out of University of Alabama, Roll Tide today as I look in the camera. Derek Thomas.
Derek Thomas. Now, that's the name that you mentioned that I don't know very much about Derek Thomas. Are you talking about Derek Thomas that played with the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yes, sir.
Yes, wait a minute. That has the NFL sack record for most sacks in a game?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, when we played Kansas City, he came to my side sparingly because most of the time he was coming from the blind side. I had Neil Smith. You remember him?
Man.
Nebraska, New Orleans finest.
That's who I had. And whoever our left tackle was, God bless him, had to deal with that guy. He was just you know who you reminded me of? You know who I think patterned their game after him? Von Miller. Miller, who, by the way, just signed, who did he sign with? The Denver Broncos, which already had the oldest roster in the NFL, but he just got a little older by signing him.
They got a lot older.
Yeah. But that guy is poetry in motion, man. He's explosive. He can change directions on you. He can explode into you, use his power. That's who he reminded me of. I think he probably patterned his game after him. But he was dynamic, man. Before the good Lord called him home, I hope that was the case. He put fear in the hearts of a lot of offensive tackles because nobody was seeing that kind of running back wide receiver type foot speed and on passing downs. Nobody was seeing it.
Back to you, Hawk.
Well, the speed, the strength, you mentioned it a little while ago, the nightmare of having to deal with, one of the best guys. And every week, Jackie, it was another guy, just depending on what the team, and this guy's just as good as the guy on the other team. You're going against the best every week. And I would imagine if we had them on, they go, you know what, that's Slater. I couldn't get around him. None of my stuff worked against him nearly as well as it did against maybe some of these other guys. The mutual respect is amazing.
Well, it is, and I unfortunately for me, it would do a lot. My head would probably be a lot bigger if I heard that a few times from some of these guys. But I like to think that I made it more difficult for them, and even though I never heard it and never heard one of these special players acknowledge it, but I like to
No.
think that I made it difficult.
I think there's a club of guys on the defensive side that all agree there's their secret handshake, and then they go, "We'll never ever admit that this guy made it harder for me." Gary Big Hands was averaging 3.5 sacks a game, and how many have against you? He probably had none, right?
He had one assisted tackle on a rundown.
Oh, goodness gracious! So you shut the man down, but he'll never tell you that. Oh, Jackie held me every dang play. 15
Well,
yard
if he
penalty.
if he tells me that, and I hear him say that today, I'll know he died and went to heaven, and then he's not in the other place, because that's where I'm hoping to go.
Yeah. Well, 20 years. Talk a little bit about that. Was it the last training camp? Was it just, it's harder for me to get ready for this one than any of the others previous? So what was your experience like?
Well, it was difficult because I was coming off of a torn tricep. I tore my tricep, tore it pretty good, and they did a surgery on it. They advised me not to play anymore, but I wanted to get my 20th season in. Everything was healing up fine. I was doing okay, and then I go out and I pull a rookie to the side to take a few snaps, live snaps, and I blocked him the first time. I blocked him the second time. Then he got a little frustrated letting the old man block him, and he countered and went inside on me, and I grabbed him like I normally do, and I could just feel my tricep shredding loose where it had been reattached.
Uh-oh.
And so I thought that was it, but I decided to, go through that next process and at least start and play one game in my 20th season, and that's what I did.
Okay. Yeah, good. LA was very special to you. I'm going to say Dodgers, Angels. You were there for Magic and Showtime. Gretzky gets there in '88 and changes Los Angeles into somewhat of a hockey town.
Right.
You've had to deal with national championships at the collegiate level with SC and UCLA.
Yes.
Dodgers, obviously.
Now I'm watching Shohei Ohtani, who, by the way, hit his 4th consecutive home run just yesterday, 2-run shot. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. But I've been fortunate because, the Angels are right here in Orange County, and the Dodgers are. I've been watching this guy's whole career and just marveling at some of the things he's gotten accomplished. And just, he's a freak, man. He's what are they, albatross or something they refer to him as being odd and different and everything. And he truly is. And not only that, man, the guy can run. He's fast. I don't know you guys was ever watching. He's stealing bases, and he's a very efficient, it's like the good Lord said, let there be professional baseball player. And let him be gifted in every conceivable area that he needs to be gifted in. He's amazing to watch, and I just consider myself fortunate to be sitting here, watching him play in Angel Stadium, where I played 15 years of football, and then now at the Dodger Stadium. I mean, he's right here. I mean, all the special stuff is going on right here.
Hey, Jackie, did you learn in high school or prior to high school that you can't hit a curveball? I had to wait till high school before I realized that.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the sport. My father wanted me to play, and I was going home. All brought me a brand new leather glove. I still have that glove, actually.
Do you really? Wow.
I still have it. But the minute I looked at Jet magazine and I looked at the sports section and saw where a guy got hit in the eye with a baseball, I was done with the sport. I haven't played any organized baseball since.
You learned how to get a calcium deposit on your elbow instead.
Yeah,
right?
I know, but I mean, you at least don't have a 100 mile per hour baseball coming at your eyeball sockets.
No,
so that's something I never would have gotten used to. When I saw that, I was done with baseball as a player.
Do you get used to Matthew always having a chance to outduel you at the Thanksgiving championship conversation that you have with him about who's the best player?
No, we don't have those kind of conversations. We just
Really?
have. I'm always in awe of the things that he has experienced, and I'm always proud of the leader that he became for the team that he played with. He was an exceptional worker at his craft. He was he took it to a level that I don't think anyone ever has. Certainly nobody that I played with. And he was coached and drafted um, by arguably the best coach in the history of the game
Yep.
for all the reasons that he brought to the table. And so I'm just thankful and grateful that he was blessed the way he was. And 16 years, regardless of what position you're playing, is a long time. Going to one Super Bowl is a feat, but going to five and winning three is another one.
No kidding.
And being a part of arguably one of the best era of team football in the history of the sport is something to be very thankful for.
Absolutely. When did you know that he had a chance to make it to the next level? Was it high school, UCLA? When did you start to really
Well,
matriculate that?
Even on the day of the draft, my wife was wanting to rush home and from church and see, about the draft and all of that. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't want everybody to be disappointed because I'm not seeing where he did enough to get drafted. Just he's a hardworking kid and everything. But the time that I felt my most exuberant about him being a pro was when I watched him return a kickoff 80 some yards against a good college football team. And then he ended up doing a couple of other times. He had set UCLA's kickoff return record for yards and touchdowns. And then to be the top special teams player in the country and all of that, making All American. When I saw those runs, and I saw how much fun he was having and how fast he was actually running, I thought, man, this kid's got the kind of speed that I'm used to seeing on this level. And I remember taking Eric Dickerson, Doug Reed, Reggie Doss, and it might have been Leroy Irvin. We all went to a Servite High School game, and we watched the game, and he had, I think, 2 touchdowns that night. And Eric Dickerson said to me, he said, Jackie, that boy can run. And I'm thinking, I don't know, he's fast. That's what it means, because they say that people with speed judge speed a whole lot better than people who don't.
Sure. Yeah.
So I wasn't judging speed very well in those days, and
Yeah.
to see him do what he did, Eric Dickerson thought it was special at that time.
Well, that's like you talking to another offensive lineman's dad going, hey, your son's got some feet right there. I'm going to tell you right now, he can get his feet down. He's got a lot of power. You recognize it. The guy that can run a 9-800 like Eric has the ability to make it impress. Hey, I'm impressed. Matthew can play. Good for you to be able to hear that. I'm sure that's one of those moments where you go, well done.
Well, I did everything I could to keep him from playing the game. I encouraged baseball, soccer, all of that.
Yep.
And then I told him when he got to high school, if he still wanted to play, I would, you could play. Sure enough, when he got to high school, he said, Dad, you told me I could play football when I got to high school. I'm in high school now. I want to play. So I'm thinking, man, I can't help him. I don't know enough about the game, his position. So I went and got some guys that like Leroy Irving and Ron Brown, Olympic gold medalist Ron Brown.
How about that? Yep.
To work with them, and these guys poured into him, and he took to it, and he got better and got more competitive. And I always attribute both those men. Ron Brown, by the way, Ron Brown is struggling right now. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks. No, I'm sorry, 3 months. He has been home for a month. He hasn't eaten in 3 months.
Wow.
He got his hip replaced, and he contracted sepsis in the other hip that needed to be replaced. And it spread throughout his body, and we almost lost the great gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist Ron Brown. But he's home for the week, been a week home, and he hasn't eaten in 3 months and a week because of the medication that he's on. So remember him in your prayers for those of you who remember him, and let's hope the good Lord blesses him so he can get better.
Ron Brown, when I was trying to get into the National Football League, I had an agent, and he sent me to Drake Stadium and said, "You're going to go meet with a Olympic champion, a gold medalist." And Ron ends up showing up, and he looked at me for about 5 minutes, and he says, "I don't know if I can work it. You're too dang slow, kid. We'll see what we can do." But teaching about
Yes.
certain techniques and everything like that. I'm glad he did that with Matthew as well for you.
Well,
But
when he came, I invited him to a track meet to watch Matthew run, and it was a dual meet, and Matthew won the 100-meter by about 5 yards. And I looked at Ron and I said, "Ron, can you believe that I have a son that can run this fast? Isn't that amazing?" And Ron looked at me and he said, "Jack, he did everything wrong." And he started training Matthew.
Yeah.
And he trained him for an entire year. And the next year, he was, I think he finished third in the state in the 100-meter.
Yeah.
And second, I want to say, in the state in the 200-meter. And he was the Orange County Track Male Athlete of the Year because he won the Orange County Track Championships. He was just an unbelievably skilled as a runner based on what he had been taught.
And I think it's fair. I give Tony Gonzalez credit, the Hall of Fame tight end. He played college basketball at Cal
Right.
Berkeley, and he goes, "Basketball made me a better football player. And
Mhm.
football made me a better basketball player." And I knew exactly what he meant when he said that.
Yeah.
I would imagine that track helped Matthew become a better football player, and football helped him become a better track athlete, just the way the aggressiveness that you would need
You're
to
right.
have. Plus, taking some of the split-second attributes that Ron would be able to say, "Why is your hand out here? Get your hand in a little bit closer. Run more in line." Just some real specific techniques that would make him better. Just like you with your post foot or with your kick step and all the things like Hudson Hawk
Right.
and some of the others would try to teach.
Absolutely. He made a big difference. He was very influential, and Matthew's the type of kid that if he feels he's learning something, then he feels he's growing. He feels he's getting better. He wants to be exposed to information that can make a difference. And I think a lot of people are that way. A lot of people, I've been around, and they didn't have quite the success that you would have thought. And it was because they wanted to do it their own way, never really considered other options, which might have been better than their way. And consequently, they fail. So you got to be open-minded in almost anything you do if you want to improve and be successful, I think.
And sharing techniques like that. Vincent, anything else?
No, I'm finished.
Oh, well,
Vincent, let me just say once again, Vincent, I've just known you from afar, but I appreciate the work that you do. I really do. Thank you for the tribute that you paid to me some time ago. I thought it was humbling, and sometimes you never know if people appreciate, it's, at least the job that I did. Nobody's throwing me a football. I'm not running with the ball or anything like that, and very few people, actually pay any attention to my work. And to hear you share with your fans about my career and my work and where it came from, and just so many details you did in that particular event there. I mean, it was just, for me and my family, I want you to know that it was special, and I appreciate you for paying attention. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm gonna say this. See, a lot of times you got people from different parts of the country, and they're gonna be kind of biased to their football people. California, Ohio. I understand that. Make no mistake, when you play in the SWAC and you get to the NFL and you have played 20 years, and see, a lot of people don't know how serious that football was in the 70s. There were some super great football players.
No doubt.
And unfortunately, they didn't get an opportunity. Like you say, Ole Miss and Mississippi State didn't recruit you. But I guarantee you, during your time, one of those teams would have beat the brakes off Mississippi State and Ole Miss. So I'm gonna leave it at this. It was my pleasure, my honor, and most of all, when I get somebody from the state of Mississippi that's super, super talented, I'm gonna give them a royalty. You wanna know why? My parents are still living, and they're from the great state of Mississippi.
Yeah,
Thank you,
they,
sir.
they want to make sure you do it right, huh?
Yes,
All right,
sir.
then. All right.
Back to you, Hall.
Harper, you and I serve on the board over there, trying to take care of our old teammates and people coming up with different ideas with the Harvard study over there. I appreciate you and your work. We got work to continue to do, obviously, but it's good that someone now is looking out for the interests of former players, and you and I sit on that board, and you and I have been in those meetings. We know that exists. We know that people are starting to look and say, hey man, these people aren't the same once they stop playing, and we got to look at some of the issues that they're dealing with and kind of help them through. And that's the thing that I think I appreciate most about the Harvard study. And then to know that there are people like you on the board with us, with me, and looking at all angles, because you're not, just because you stop your playing career doesn't mean you're done living, and you still have a whole lot more life to live, and the quality of that life should be invested in. And I think you and men like you, and I'm just tickled to be a part of it, and hopefully we'll continue to do a good job.
Well, Jackie, I look at it this way. I think moms and mom in general have a big part of the future of any sport. And if mom is not sure whether or not the game is safe enough for her little boy to play, it can really make a difference. So we're trying to find ways to learn from what you and other guys from the 50s and 60s that are still with us. What can we learn about them? What can we learn about guys from the 70s and the 80s that can help guys that are playing now and help guys that are yet to play, that are going to play in the near future? And if we can help that game be safer, to be better, it's a dangerous sport. It's not easy to play. The hard is what makes it great. Chuck Knox said this, and you played for Chuck. I did 1 year as well. He goes, football is a difficult sport. If it were easy, there'd be a field on every corner. And it's not easy. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jackie, please continue.
He said everybody would be doing it. And he also said proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah, I'm glad you remember that from him, as well as, hey, see, here's what we got to do on this play. See, Chuck was
he was a piece of work. I wanted to thank you also for mentioning our Vince Ferragamo and myself on our On Point Live podcast that we're doing. And I know that the work that you and Vincent are putting into this podcast, it's difficult. It's not easy. You're securing people that can come alongside you in your mission to inform, your fan base. And we're doing that as well over at On Point Live. Vince and I, we're having a good time to do that. And it's also comforting to know that we have people that wants to hear us tell our story. Harmony Cheese have come alongside us out of Wisconsin, and they're doing a fantastic job. Gap and Ford have shown a lot of interest in what we're doing, and hopefully they'll be on board with us as well. And so, I commend you for the work that you guys are doing, and it's encouraging to me. And I always like to participate in podcasts where people are working hard and trying to inform people about, some real aspects of life, and in this particular case of sporting life. And at my age now, it seems to be even more pressing that people know a little bit about my journey. And so I just want to thank you. Before we leave, I just wanted to thank you both for having me on your show, and I wish you all the very best in the future. And if I could be of any help in the future, don't hesitate to call.
Well, we only scratched the surface with you and your life. We didn't even talk about your induction. Maybe we can have you back on again. But I appreciate you letting us know that the Harmony Cheese of Wisconsin, Galpin Ford, Galpin Motors out in Los Angeles, and Clarissa J. Wineries with Vince Ferragamo's name are all a part of the On Point Live show that you do with Vince Ferragamo. So thank you for allowing us to enter into your brand. And for obvious reasons, we wish you success with great Rams, great Raiders stories. Eventually, you're going to have Shohei Ohtani on your show, and you're going to talk about his dog Decoy and all these other things. You've got a great market there, and we appreciate you being a part of the show, Jackie. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a great day. I look forward to talking to you again, seeing you.
Oh, it's been our pleasure. Not often, Vincent Turner, do we get to have a man with a gold jacket. And as humble as he's been to give us his time, what a special thrill it's been for us here on this show.
Hey, all I can say as I ended today is that I've been very blessed. Like you said, Harper, how can you not be excited and you leave the day knowing that you got maybe, as I said before, when you open your mouth and you talk about offensive tackles and played this game, you better put Jackie Slater in your top 3. And all I can say is, but a great Sugarfoot, the Ohio players, F-I-R-E, fire. Back to you, Harper.
You know, right, a man from Memphis, Jackie, a man from Memphis will always have a musical rendition that he has for us. Yes. Well, thank you, everybody, for being a part of today's show. Our special guest has been Jackie Slater. I want to say thank you to Logan Landers for putting all of the production in place here today to get Jackie on in the first place and make sure everything runs smoothly. For Vincent Turner, our co-host and our founder, I'm Harper Bell saying thank you, Jackie. Once again, we appreciate you being a part of 100 Yards of Football. This has been our special interview with Jackie Slater. Have a fantastic rest of your day.